Hey folks, back with another video. Let's dive into what stories got my attention today. Starting with an update on Ethiopia. Ethiopia's government has announced that it has captured or killed most commanders of the Tigray region militia, while Tigray's local leaders countered on Friday, December 5th, that civilians in Mekelle, the region's capital, were protesting against looting by occupying troops. Now, in the context of the ban to press and the ban on the press in the area, it is impossible to verify the information. While neither of the warring parties presented any evidence for their assertions about the month-long military operation in the mountainous region bordering Eritrea and Sudan. The local power station was bombed and there has been electricity shortage since, while the internet shutdown is still in place, preventing Tigray to communicate with the rest of the world. Quote, Eritrean soldiers are everywhere, end quote. Debretsion Gebre Mikhail said, according to the Reuters reports, repeating an accusation that President Isaias Afwerki has sent soldiers over the border to back Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed against their mutual foe. Now, so far, it seems that the Ethiopian government has been able to overwhelm the Tigrayan rebels. On another note, I expect that the foreign aid will come to people in due time. I'm assuming this, as of yet, that the holdup is just the delay due to bureaucracy more than anything else. Moving on over to France. France's latest steps in combating Islamist extremism at home have been closely monitored in Arab countries and broadly the Muslim countries. Macron's statements that he saw, quote, Islam as a religion in crisis, end quote, fanned the flames further, as did his interior minister's recent announcement on the potential closure of nearly 80 mosques in France. Sheikh Mohammed Abu Zaid, chairman of the Sunni court and imam of the largest mosque in Saida near Beirut, however, believes that only peaceful collaboration will improve relations. Quote, using the state's power and authority will do the opposite, end quote, he told DW. Now, Abu Zaid is widely known as an Islamic scholar focused on dialogue. He's the author of 18 books advocating for a moderate, peaceful Islam and dialogue with non-Muslim or minority Muslim countries. He has also taught at Stanford University in the US and was among the first imams to travel to Denmark after protests erupted over the publication of cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad in 2005. Quote, Muslims and the French government need to focus on three aspects, end quote, the prominent imam believes. Firstly, he sees the necessity for the French government to be open to the Muslim community of around 6 million people in France, Europe's largest, by collaborating with their leadership. Quote, otherwise, people will feel overruled, end quote, he said. Secondly, he recommends that imams be trained and qualified in the country they live in. Thirdly, he says it's crucial to raise awareness that closing mosques will only lead to new problems. Quote, people will not stop praying or listening to imams. They will just do this secretly, end quote. Muhammad Abu Zaid's opinion is rare in the Islamic world. Quote, fanatics will accuse me of being weak and of giving in to the French authorities, end quote, he said. Now, in the history of strictly secular France, none of the around 2,600 mosques and prayer rooms, including their privately employed imams, have been inspected by the state. But Abu Zaid believes that the state should take on the task. Quote, as a man of responsibility and long experience, I think this is the right way, end quote, the 45-year-old imam says. Abu Zaid sends a clear message to Muslim immigrants to, quote, see themselves as part of the country they live in and not just as visitors, end quote. From Abu Zaid's point of view, the religious Muslim community needs, quote, to defend the country that welcomed you and gave you citizenship, end quote. He also deliberately addresses French Muslims, telling them that, quote, you are French citizen. You should not bring your Turkish, Indian, Pakistani, or Lebanese customs, but you should live according to the new country, end quote. Abu Zaid says he is in favor of a charter of the French Council of Muslim Worship has been working on since mid-November. It is meant to reflect and, quote, recognize the values of the Republic, end quote, and is expected to be submitted to the government on December 7th. Quote, I understood that Christian-Muslim dialogue is the basis for a peaceful understanding, end quote, he said. Now, although he is the head of the largest mosque in Saida, he doesn't put pressure on his own 4 children to pray at the mosque. While I welcome a Christian-Muslim dialogue, I would add that Muslims in the West need to have an even broader dialogue, an open dialogue, also including what responsibility the Muslims have and what they can do to help counter terrorism and any other such activities amongst them, and also to become an integrated part of the Western country that they live in. Moving on into Hong Kong, the former Hong Kong lawmaker Ted Hui said on Sunday that his local bank accounts appear to have been frozen he fled after he fled to Britain with his family to continue his pro-democracy activities. Hui told Reuters via social media WhatsApp that bank accounts belonging to him, his wife, and his parents at Bank of China Hong Kong, HSBC, and Hang Seng Bank were frozen. He gave no further details. Democracy activists say conditions have worsened in the former British colony after China imposed security legislation on the financial hub in June, making anything Beijing regards as subversion, secession, terrorism, or colluding with foreign forces punishable by up to life in prison. China, which promises Hong Kong a high degree of autonomy, denies curbing rights and freedoms. But authorities in Hong Kong and Beijing have moved swiftly to quash dissent after anti-government protests erupted last year and engulfed the city. Local media reported that at least 5 accounts worth hundreds of thousands of US dollars belonging to Hui and his family had been inaccessible since Saturday. Hong Kong police said late on Sunday that they were investigating a Hong Kong person who had absconded overseas with bank accounts being frozen for suspected money laundering and possible violation of the new national security law. It was not immediately clear who police were referring to. Hui said on Thursday he had fled Hong Kong after facing criminal charges and would seek exile in Britain. One of the pro-democracy activists arrested last month and charged with disturbing legislature proceedings. Hui arrived in Copenhagen last week on an invitation from Danish lawmakers. Hong Kong Security Bureau issued a statement on Friday that, while not naming Hui, said, quote, running away by jumping bail and using various excuses such as so-called exile to avoid one's responsibility is a shameful, hypocritical, and cowardly act of recoil, end quote. Now, Beijing, I believe, is a tyrannical regime, and therefore, as I have said in numerous previous videos, that our prime strategy against Beijing should be to expose their tyranny. And in that effort, I will continue to cover stories in future videos to show the tyranny of Beijing. Now, in this case, I believe Beijing has been excessively tyrannical to Mr. Hui by not just freezing his account, which is questionable, but his wife's and his parents, which I believe are sufficient to say that they are overstepping it. Anyhow, moving over to the Middle East. Kuwait, which had been mediating between Saudi Arabia and Qatar, hinted on November 27 that a breakthrough was imminent. And on Friday, Kuwaiti Foreign Minister Sheikh Ahmed Nasser As-Sabah said that there were, quote, constructive and fruitful discussions, end quote, and progress was made in resolving the row that erupted in mid 2017. After the Kuwaiti statement, Qatari Foreign Minister Mohammed bin Abdurrahman Al Thani thanked Kuwait for its mediation. The Saudi ship is taking a big arc of course of course correction, resetting its compass for a new voyage ahead with an eye on the Biden presidency. Incipient signs in this direction began appearing with the recent Saudi feelers to Qatar and Turkey for reconciliation and, importantly, Riyadh's reticence in establishing formal relations with Israel. Now, acting on Israel's behalf, the Trump administration tried hard to persuade Saudi Arabia to enter the Abraham Accords laterally, but to no avail. The Saudis balked at the crucial meeting at Neom, a resort on the Red Sea, on November 27 of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, what emerges is that Saudi Arabia does not want to get associated with any precipitate movement that would annoy the Muslim world and the Saudi religious establishment. In fact, therefore, the Saudis are choosing instead to harmonize with contrarian position taken by Turkey and Qatar. Qatar supports a two-state solution with occupied East Jerusalem as the capital of a Palestinian state, a stance the foreign minister reiterated. Suffice to say, a Saudi-Qatari rapprochement would deal a body blow to the Abraham Accords of last August. Now, in retrospect, all the hype about the Accords heralding a new dawn in the geopolitics of the Middle East is turning out to be wishful thinking. Certainly, Israel and the UAE will not like Saudi Arabia's normalization with Qatar and Turkey, but both have great animus against the Turkey-Qatar axis, which they see as an existential challenge to their regional strategies to dominate Middle Eastern politics. They see Ankara and Doha as mentoring the Muslim Brotherhood. Equally, the Israeli Emirati plan was to create jointly with Saudi Arabia a front against Iran. That plan also won't take off now. Reports suggest that Saudi Arabia has distanced itself from the Israeli Emirati plan to stoke tensions with Iran, which would create an alibi for US military intervention while Trump is still in power. We may expect a rapprochement soon between Saudi Arabia and Turkey as well. There is close coordination between Ankara and Doha on regional developments. Now, it is entirely conceivable that Saudi policies figured prominently in the discussion recently in Ankara between President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and the visiting Emir of Qatar, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, on November 26. There has also been palpable change in Turkish rhetoric in recent weeks toward a more conciliatory tone vis-a-vis both US and the EU as well as Saudi Arabia. For both Turkey and Saudi Arabia, an improvement of their bilateral relationship could halt the trend toward their growing isolation in the Middle East and enhance their space to maneuver and burnish their image in Washington and Brussels as responsible regional powers. Now, I do expect there will be some sort of normalization between Qatar, Turkey, and Saudi Arabia, but I do believe there will be some issues that will not be sorted. In my opinion, it would be around Libya and Syria and somewhat on Yemen. However, I do think that Iran will be something where these countries will have an agreement, a sort of running Iran under the bus so that these countries can have a deal, sort of a thing. Anyway, whatever comes of it, I will keep an eye on it, and if there's any important development, I will cover them in a future video. Moving over to our favorite weekend protest. Thousands of demonstrators marched in Belarus capital Minsk and elsewhere on Sunday as weekly protests demanding the resignation of veteran President Alexander Lukashenko continued, prompting police to detain more than 300 people. Now, most protesters marched in residential areas of the capital, clapping hands, shouting, quote, "Long live Belarus," end quote, and waving the white flags with red stripe, a symbol of the opposition. Military vehicles and water cannon were seen on Minsk streets on Sunday, while uniformed men, many in helmets, grabbed people in civilian clothes. A witness aid and videos posted on social media showed. In Minsk alone, the police detained more than 300 people accused of "quote unquote" violating the law on mass events. Russia's TASS news agency quoted the Belarus interior minister as saying, Russian President Vladimir Putin has urged political forces in Belarus to try to resolve the differences through dialogue, and also said the ex-Soviet Republic, a close Moscow ally, was facing unprecedented meddling by external forces. Russia's backing is seen as vital for Lukashenko's chances of staying in power, and its statements are closely scrutinized for changes in tone or any sign that Moscow could be pushing for some kind of managed power transition. Now, so far it seems that the anti-Lukashenko protests are destined to effectively fail. Russia has continued to support Lukashenko, and the protests don't have any strong support to counter this Russian backing of Lukashenko. Well, that's it for this video. If you like the video, then hit that like button and hit that subscribe button for future updates. Write in the comment sections your thoughts, criticisms, and anything I might have missed. And as usual, all the links to the news stories are in the description box below. And I will see you in the next video.